So the education that I have now put together, very simple, consists of 4 modules, and each of these modules focuses on one pattern that leads people to think that a certain kind of action will solve their issue, when in fact that is the very action that creates the issue. And we look at how to recognize these nuts. We look at how to process them, and we look at what sort of fundamental misconceptions about the nature of reality are connected to each of these nuts, and how going through the process of clarifying the nuts or untying the nuts can correct some really profound misunderstandings about reality. Like, for example, the misunderstanding that what you are ultimately searching for is something that isn't already here, but something you're separate from. When in fact, what you're ultimately searching for is being, and you are not only not separate from it, but you're inseparable from it. So the first one is the nut of positive reification. It's I can say a little bit about each of them. The positive reification is the thing that when you become aware of being, you tend to give it a positively laden name. So you will call it joy, you will call it connection, you will call it love, you will call it peace, you will call it grounding. Think about all the words that you use when you have a really lovely meditation, right? What is it you feel during that really lovely meditation? You will use such words. The moment you use any of these words, then any of these words are connected to a whole bunch of associations. So if you, for example, say, what I'm feeling is peace. Oh dear, right? You open a can of worms, because we have so many ideas about peace. We have a lot of ideas about what is necessary for peace. For example, you might think that in order to feel peace, you have to have no conflicts. And see, now your attention gets diverted into thinking about how can I preserve this peace by never getting into any conflicts. And that's a full-time job. So it's just going to detract your attention from peace. Other things around peace would be, maybe you think peace is boring, right? Even positive states, we have negative ideas about it. So the moment we recognize or label the experience of being as peace, for example, then that's gonna open up all these negative ideas, which then again will take our attention away from just resting with being. The nut of conditionality, I've already said something about. That's the thing where our attentions get diverted by the conditions we believe we have to fulfill in order to feel being. And many times it can be a very interesting inquiry to say, what if you just drop fulfilling, if you never fulfilled those conditions, right? If you drop the whole project, and then discovering that in doing so, our awareness is freed up and we find what we were searching for. I think the thing I like about this nut is that many times in spiritual circles, you hear this thing about you find what you're searching for when you stop searching. And it sounds very mysterious, but I think when you think about it in this way, it's not mysterious at all. It's just the act of searching occupies your awareness so that you don't notice that what you're searching for is already here. And there's nothing mysterious about it. The nut of negative reification is, for various reasons, we get the states that when we feel being, we don't always recognize it as something positive. Sometimes it's almost like it gets placed a mask on it. So sometimes maybe the inner stillness, we don't recognize it as peace. We say the inner stillness feels like death or like being eradicated. And so recognizing being in spite of the negative labels that we may put on it, that is really an important thing to work with. I usually say that this is a little bit like the adventures, right? It's like you have to recognize that it's a prince, even though it looks like a frog. Or in Aladdin, right? You go into this room and there's all sorts of treasures. And the only thing that doesn't look like a treasure is the lamp. And that's, of course, the most precious thing. And it's the same with being. Often it looks like inconspicuous or even as something negative. And learning to recognize being behind these masks is really important. The nut of alienation is many times we don't recognize what our own thoughts are doing. So we organize our experience all the time. We structure our experience all the time. We pick out what we think is relevant and overlook what is irrelevant. And the things that are relevant, we give them different kind of structures like causal relationships and so on. So our mind is really busy interpreting our relationship or interpreting our experience, but often we do not, we just see the result and we don't know that we created it. So we are alienated from our own agency. And a really important part of the therapeutic work in general is to help people become aware that some of the negative things that are happening in their lives are the result. It looks like they're the result of external circumstances, but your own mind is very actively participating in creating it. And if you can see how that happens, then you get the possibility of solving the problem by not creating it instead of by doing something about it. So I love David Bohm has this wonderful metaphor. He says this is like creating proprioception of mind. So for example, if I pat myself on the top of the head and I think that that's annoying, I don't sort of have to do something like putting on a barrier or something like that. I can just, because I know that the feeling is created by my own hand, even though I can't see my own hand, because I can feel where my hand is in space and I can feel what it's doing. So I know this sensation is created by my own action. If I don't like it, I just stop. But generally speaking, we don't have the same level of proprioception when it comes to the mind. We feel the effects of it, of what the mind is doing, but we don't perceive the action of our mind that leads to those effects. And the last one, the nut of fragmentation, is because being can be experienced in many different ways, like peace, like joy, like tenderness, like connectivity. And because we can develop ideas about what are the conditions we need to fulfill in order to get that particular aspect of being, then we can develop different parts of our personality that's in pursuit of different positive aspects of being, and that those can be in conflict. Now, being itself cannot be in conflict. So the thing we are actually searching for, like, say, the peace and the vitality, two sides of the same coin, right? Both are aspects of being. But the ideas we have about, the false ideas we have about what we need to do in order to create those things, they can be in conflict. So maybe we think in order to create the vitality, we have to go on a lot of adventures. And in order to create this, the stability, we have to stay at home. While the stable aspect of being and the dynamic or vital aspect of being are not in conflict with each other, of course, we can't both travel and stay at home at the same time. And so when we don't understand the nature of what we are looking for, then our personality can get split against itself, and we become fragmented. And so this is so it's very interesting to explore the kind of dilemmas we face in life, because they reveal to us some of our false ideas about what the nut of conditionality, right? What are the conditions we are seeking? If we then look at what are we ultimately reaching for, we will find that what we are ultimately reaching for, what two sides of us that are in conflict are ultimately reaching for, are actually the same. And by seeing that, we acquire a personality structure that is more coherent, less fragmented. And again, there is nothing that can occupy our awareness and take it away from being more than fighting ourselves and being fragmented. Good. So that was a very quick run through of the 5 modules.